Welcome to another episode of Microsoft Knowledge Nuggets here on M365 FM. I'm your host, Mirko Peters. Today's topic is one that almost everyone building in Azure has heard of, but few people actually understand in plain English: Azure Virtual WAN. So here's the thing. If you've ever tried to build a global network in Azure the traditional way, you know it gets complicated fast, really fast. You start with one region and a few virtual networks and everything works fine, but then you add a second region, then a third, and suddenly you need to connect branch offices. Now you're managing peerings, route tables, firewall rules, and VPN gateways across half a dozen locations. It's like building every road, every traffic light, and every intersection yourself, and every time you add a new region, you have to build more roads. Azure Virtual WAN handles the hard parts so you don't have to. Think of it as a highway system. Microsoft builds and manages the highway, you just build the on-ramps. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how it works, why it exists, and when you should use it. The old way, hub and spoke complexity. Let's start with the old way. Once you see the problem, the solution makes a lot more sense. The traditional approach in Azure is called hub and spoke. Imagine one central virtual network. That's your hub, where you put shared services like firewalls, domain controllers, and VPN gateways. Then you connect your application virtual networks, the spokes, to that hub using VNet peering, so traffic flows from the spokes through the hub where you can inspect and control it. When does this work well? In a single region with a handful of virtual networks, you have total control over routing and security. You know exactly where every packet is going, and it's simple, clean, and works. But here's where it breaks. The moment you add a second region, things get messy. You need to peer your hubs together, set up user-defined routes, UDRs, to force traffic through firewalls and configure route tables for every single spoke. And every time you add a new region, you multiply that complexity. Let me give you a real example. Imagine a company with branches in 3 regions: North America, Europe, and Asia, that needs connectivity between all of them. In a traditional hub and spoke setup, that means at least 12 peerings. Each hub needs to peer with every other hub, and each spoke needs route tables pointing to the right firewall. And when they add a new region, they have to update every single route table by hand. That's the nightmare of managing global networking the old way. It's not that it doesn't work, it's that it doesn't scale. The more you add, the more you have to manage, and eventually the complexity becomes a full-time job for a team of network engineers. This is why Microsoft built Azure Virtual WAN. It solves the scaling problem without sacrificing control. So what exactly is it? Let's break it down. What Azure Virtual WAN actually is. What exactly is Azure Virtual WAN? Here's the simplest definition. It's a managed networking service that connects your branches, users, and cloud resources through a single Microsoft-managed backbone. Instead of building and managing all the connections yourself, Microsoft handles the heavy lifting. Think of it like a highway system. You don't build or maintain the highway, you just build the on-ramps. Your on-ramps are the connections from your branch offices, your remote users, and your virtual networks. The highway itself, the routing, the interconnections between regions, the backbone, that's all managed by Microsoft. So what are the actual components? Let's break it down into the 4 main pieces. First, the virtual WAN resource itself. That's the overall network container, the name for your entire highway system. Second, virtual hubs, the regional connection points, one per Azure region. Each hub is like a highway interchange. Third, spoke virtual networks, your applications connected to those hubs. And fourth, gateways. These handle VPN connections from your branches and express route connections from your data centers. Now, there are 2 tiers of Virtual WAN. Basic gives you site-to-site VPN only. It's simple but limited. Standard gives you the full set of features: express route, point-to-site VPN for remote users, inter-hub routing, Azure firewall integration, and more. For almost any real-world scenario, you want standard. The big difference from traditional hub and spoke is this: Microsoft manages the routing between hubs automatically. You don't have to create peerings or configure route tables. You connect your spokes to the hub, and the hub handles the rest. It's that simple. The heart of Virtual WAN is the virtual hub. Let's look at that next. The virtual hub, your on-ramp to the global network. So what actually is a virtual hub? Here's the simplest way to think about it. It's a Microsoft-managed regional router that lives inside a specific Azure region. That's it. A router that Microsoft sets up and maintains for you so you don't have to worry about the routing backend. Each hub is a connection point for 4 things: virtual networks, your spoke applications, branch offices connected through VPN or express route, remote users connecting through point-to-site VPN, and other hubs in different regions talking to each other. Here's the part that matters. The hub handles all the routing between these connections automatically. No manual route tables, no user-defined routes, no peering configurations. You connect something to the hub, and the hub figures out how to get traffic where it needs to go. Now, you do need to plan your address spaces. Each hub needs its own IP range, just like any other network component. When you connect a spoke VNet to the hub, it's a simple VNet connection. A few clicks and you're done. The hub learns the VNet's address space automatically. But here's where the highway analogy really clicks. You can have multiple hubs in different regions, and they automatically connect to each other. So a hub in North America talks to a hub in Europe, which talks to a hub in Asia, all through the Microsoft global backbone. Each hub is like an on-ramp to that backbone. You build the on-ramp for your region, and Microsoft handles the highway between them. And the scale is impressive. A single hub can handle up to 1,000 site-to-site VPN connections, up to 100,000 remote users, and up to 50 gigabits per second of throughput through the hub router. That's not small office scale, that's enterprise scale. Now that we have hubs, let's connect everything to them. Connecting branches, users, and cloud resources. So let's start with branch offices. Site-to-site VPN connects your physical locations to Azure using standard IPsec VPN tunnels. It works with pretty much any VPN device. Cisco, Fortinet, whatever you're using. No special hardware needed. Here's how it works. You create a VPN site in the hub, provide your branch's public IP address and address space, and Azure handles the rest. It creates the tunnel, manages the encryption, keeps it running. Remote users are next. Point-to-site VPN lets employees connect from anywhere. Home, coffee shop, hotel. They use the Azure VPN client, OpenVPN, or standard IKv2. And here's the key detail. It supports Microsoft Entra ID for authentication. So users log in with their work credentials, same as they do for everything else. No separate VPN passwords, no certificates to manage. When a user connects, they dial into the nearest hub. And they automatically get access to every resource connected to that hub. VNets, branch networks, other regions. No split tunnel complexity, no manual routing. They connect once and they're on the network. For your main offices and data centers, there's ExpressRoute. This is a private dedicated connection from your on-premises location to Azure. It bypasses the public internet entirely. Your traffic never touches a public network. And Virtual WAN supports both VPN and ExpressRoute on the same hub with automatic failover between them. If your ExpressRoute circuit goes down, traffic shifts to VPN without manual intervention. Now, your cloud applications. Connecting spoke VNets to the hub takes just a few clicks. You select the hub, select the VNet, and the connection is established. The hub learns the VNet's address space automatically. No peering setup, no route table configuration. And between regions, hubs talk to each other automatically over the Microsoft backbone. You don't configure inter-hub connections. You don't manage transit routing. It just works. The result is any-to-any connectivity. Any branch, any remote user, any VNet, any on-premises site. They can all reach each other with traffic staying on Microsoft's private network the entire time. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine a retailer with stores in Europe, Asia, and North America. Each store connects via site-to-site VPN to its regional hub. The European stores connect to the European hub. The Asian stores connect to the Asian hub. And when traffic needs to go between regions, say an Asian store needs to check inventory in the North American warehouse, that traffic travels over the Microsoft backbone. Not the public internet, not a third-party MPLS network, Microsoft's private network. But connectivity is only half the story. The real power is how Virtual WAN handles routing and security. Routing and security built in. But connectivity is only half the story. The real power of Virtual WAN is how it handles routing and security. In a traditional hub-and-spoke setup, if you want to force traffic through a firewall, you have to create user-defined routes, UDRs, for every single subnet, in every single spoke. And if you have multiple regions, you do it all over again. It's complex. It's error-prone. And when something breaks, good luck figuring out which route table has the wrong entry. Virtual WAN solves this with something called routing intent. Think of it as a single configuration that tells the hub, send all traffic through the firewall. That's it. One setting, not hundreds of route tables. And here's what it covers. Internet traffic, anything going out to the web. Private traffic, VNet to VNet, branch to branch, branch to VNet. And inter-hub traffic, traffic moving between regions. One policy, global enforcement. You set it once and it applies everywhere. Now, how does the firewall actually get into the picture? Through secured virtual hubs. You deploy Azure Firewall directly into the hub, or a third-party NGFW like Fortinet, Checkpoint, or Palo Alto. The firewall sits in the traffic path transparently. No UDRs needed, no complex routing. Traffic flows in, gets inspected, and flows out. It just works. For encryption, all VPN tunnels use standard IPsec IK. Microsoft recommends GCMA's 256 for the best balance of performance and security. And if you're using ExpressRoute, you can encrypt that traffic too. So even your private connection is protected. This aligns with zero trust principles. No direct internet access from spokes, all traffic inspected. Microsegmentation inside spoke VNets. And everything managed centrally through Azure Firewall Manager. One policy applied across all hubs globally. The security advantage is simple. Instead of managing firewall rules per region, you manage one policy that applies everywhere. Instead of troubleshooting route tables, you configure routing intent once. Instead of hoping nothing breaks when you add a new region, you know the policy follows automatically. So when should you use virtual WAN versus the traditional hub and spoke model? VWAN versus traditional hub and spoke. When to use what? Let's get one thing straight. Hub and spoke isn't broken. It's just the right tool for the right job. So when does hub and spoke win? When you're in a single region. When you've got a handful of virtual networks, maybe 5, maybe 10. You want total control over every route, every firewall rule. You've got a small team that knows this network inside and out. In that case, hub and spoke is simpler and cheaper. You don't need the overhead of a managed service. Virtual WAN wins when you're in multiple regions, when you've got branch offices everywhere, when remote users need to connect from anywhere, when your network spans the globe and you want to stop managing it piece by piece. The more distributed your network gets, the more virtual WAN makes sense. Let's talk numbers. At small scale, say 10 VNets, hub and spoke is cheaper. You're just paying for peerings and basic gateways. But at 200 VNets, virtual WAN is about 21% cheaper. Why? Because you're not paying your team to manage hundreds of peerings and route tables. Those operational savings add up fast. And performance? In global deployments, Virtual WAN gives 15 to 25% lower latency. That's because Microsoft's backbone routing is optimized for global traffic. Your packets take the best path, not the path you manually configured 3 years ago. The management difference is even bigger. With hub and spoke, you manage peerings, route tables, gateways, and firewalls per region. Each region becomes its own project. With Virtual WAN, it's a single pane of glass. One view, one set of policies, one way to manage everything. So how do you decide? Ask yourself one question. Am I building for today or for 3 years from now? If you're a startup with 1 region and 5 VNets, hub and spoke is fine. But if you're planning to expand, Virtual WAN grows with you. And here's the good news. You can start with hub and spoke and migrate later. Microsoft supports that migration path. You don't have to get it perfect on day one. If you ever get asked this in an interview, here's the short answer. Hub and spoke for controlled single region deployments. Virtual WAN for large-scale global connectivity. That one sentence shows you understand the trade-off. Let's look at a few real-world scenarios to see how this plays out. Real-world scenarios and migration paths. Let's make this concrete with 3 real-world scenarios. Scenario 1, a global retail chain, 50 stores across 3 continents. Remote workers doing inventory, customer service, and management. A centralized ERP system running in Azure. Here's how Virtual WAN makes this work. Deploy hubs in North America, Europe, and Asia, 1 per continent. Each store connects via site-to-site VPN to its regional hub. A store in London connects to the European hub. A store in Tokyo connects to the Asian hub. Remote workers use point-to-site VPN, authenticated through Microsoft Entra ID, their work credentials, nothing extra. Now here's the key. All traffic between stores and Azure stays on the Microsoft backbone. That London store checking inventory in the North American warehouse, that traffic never touches the public internet. It goes from the European hub across Microsoft's private network to the North American hub and into the ERP system. The result? Consistent connectivity everywhere, centralized security through the hubs, and lower cost than MPLS, no carrier contracts, no long-term commitments, just pay for what you use. Scenario 2, MPLS replacement. This is a big one. Many companies have been paying carriers for MPLS circuits for years. Expensive, rigid, hard to change. Virtual WAN gives you a path out. Start by using Virtual WAN for new branches and Azure connectivity. Any new location you open goes straight onto the Virtual WAN backbone. Then gradually migrate existing MPLS sites to VPN or ExpressRoute. Use ExpressRoute for your legacy data centers that need private connectivity. Over time, reduce your MPLS circuits as traffic shifts to the Virtual WAN backbone. You don't have to cut everything over at once. You can run both in parallel. As each MPLS contract comes up for renewal, you decide, does this site move to Virtual WAN? Most of the time, the answer is yes. Scenario 3, a cloud-first startup. You're in one region today, one hub, a handful of VNets, a small team, but you're planning to expand. You've got customers in Europe and Asia. You're hiring remote workers globally. Deploy one hub in your current region. Connect your VNets. Set up point-to-site VPN for your remote team. That's your starting point. As you expand to new regions, you add hubs. The routing is automatic. You don't reconfigure anything. Your remote users connect to the nearest hub without any changes on their end. You're ready for scale without a redesign. That's the beauty of Virtual WAN. It grows with you. So how do you actually get started? Getting started with Azure Virtual WAN. So how do you actually start? Create a Virtual WAN resource in the Azure portal. Pick standard tier. That's where the full feature set lives. Now deploy a virtual hub in the region closest to your users or workloads. Set up the basics, the hub's address space, and the VPN gateway scale units. That's your first on-ramp ready to go. Connect your first spoke VNet. It's a simple VNet connection. A few clicks, no peering, no route tables. The hub learns the address space automatically. Then add branch connectivity, create VPN sites for your offices, and download the VPN configuration your branch devices need. For remote users, configure point-to-site VPN with certificate or Entra ID authentication. Start small. Prove the concept with one hub, one VNet, one branch. Then expand to additional regions when you're ready. For more detail, check Microsoft Learn and the Azure Architecture Center. They've got step-by-step guides and reference architectures. So that's Azure Virtual WAN, the highway system for your global network. Microsoft handles the routing and infrastructure. You handle the on-ramps and the policies. Start with a single hub, connect your first VNet, and see the difference it makes. Subscribe for more plain English Azure explanations and drop a comment if this clicked.